Prosecutor's Office update, fatal traffic accident investigation. Candice Henriquez, Manager, Monetary Policy, Economics and Statistics at Central Bank of Curaçao and Sint Maarten. An impression has been created in the media that there will be a decrease in the price of electricity and water. Inspector Police Josefa, Head of Department of Communication KPSM, on the traffic accidents. From the island, Sint Maarten, this is SXM Daily News for June 24th, 2026. Philipsburg, Sint Maarten, June 24th, 2026. The prosecutor's office confirms that the suspect in the fatal traffic accident that occurred on Brouwers Road on June 11th, 2026 was released from pre-trial detention on Monday and subsequently transferred to the Immigration and Border Protection Service. The suspect has been informed that he will be prosecuted in connection with this case. The release from pre-trial detention does not affect the continuation of the criminal proceedings, including the eventual trial in court. Regarding the traffic accident, no video footage of the incident is available. In this regard, the prosecutor's office wishes to clarify that information circulating publicly suggesting that the suspect overtook 3 vehicles prior to the collision has not been supported by the evidence obtained during the investigation to date. The victim's wife was informed of the suspect's release immediately after the official process was completed. The reasons for that decision were also shared with her. The prosecutor's office is aware of the public interest and concern surrounding this case. The death of the victim has had a profound impact on the victim's family, loved ones, and the wider community. The criminal case remains active, and the investigation into the circumstances surrounding the fatal collision is ongoing. No further information will be provided at this time in the interest of the ongoing proceedings and investigation. Mr. Brown interviewed Inspector Police E. Josefa, Head of Department of Communication KPSM, on the traffic accident over the last week. Scooters and motorcycles in this has to do with behavioral riders and drivers. Will the policeman be busy investigating several of these accidents? And we are asking for cooperation against riders who should take into consideration that their lives can be in danger while driving. Talking about measures that the police department will take for the school riders.
Traffic accidents over the last couple of weeks whereby scooters and motorcycles were involved. Part of this has to do with the behavior of the riders and the drivers. The police will be busy investigating several of these serious accidents, and we are asking for cooperation again from the scooter riders, motorcycle riders, who should take in consideration that their lives can be endangered while making certain maneuvers in traffic. With that being said, we're also having an issue now that the police is going to start with in the near future about most of these motorcycles with what we call a cherry bomb and the sound that comes out of the muffler. In the near future, we will give more update in how we're going to deal and tackle the situation in the near future. We have been dealing with several main projects when it comes to firearm, narcotics, and traffic. So those are the main issues we've been dealing with for the first half of the year. And we have been seeing that compared to last year, there's a lot more serious accidents with persons passed away. And at the moment, we're doing analysis to see what's the reason behind this. And that is one of the main tasks that the police have been taken up with for the last few months. And we, again, would caution all of those riders and drivers also to take heed that every life is precious. So be careful how you use the public road in general. In case of emergencies, you could call 545 times 2, and the extension will pass you to auto detectives or to which office you need. In case of emergencies, also you can call 911, and for our tip line is 9300.
Press conference with Candice Henriquez, Manager, Monetary Policy, Economics and Statistics at Central Bank of Curaçao and Sint Maarten. So if you look at the breakdown, by region or by country groups, we see that the effect of the conflict in the Middle East is more pronounced for emerging and developing economies. That has to do with our geographical proximity, some of them, but also a higher dependence on crude oil from the Middle East meanwhile.
Well, building on Mr. Doornbos's introduction, I show here some graphs with regards to the international environment. And as he just mentioned, we are facing now turbulent times, and we see that also in the expected growth figures for the world economy, advanced economies, and emerging and developing economies. Growth is expected to ease this year, basically caused by the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. So if we look at the breakdown by region or by country groups, we see that the effect of the conflict in the Middle East is more pronounced for emerging and developing economies. And that has to do with their geographical proximity, some of them, but also a higher dependence on crude oil from the Middle East. Meanwhile, when we look at our main trading partners, the United States and the Netherlands, we see a divergent development. The United States is actually, the economy is projected to pick up this year, even though there is inflation is elevated, and that's partly because of fiscal stimulus, the big beautiful bill of the Trump administration, but also the delayed effects of monetary policy easing of last year. Meanwhile, the Netherlands growth is easing considerably in the Netherlands because of the conflict in the Middle East, higher inflation, but also supply chain disruptions are affecting the Netherlands. For next year, it is expected that growth will pick up, economic growth in the world, but also in most economies, based on the assumption that the conflict in the Middle East is going to be resolved, let's say, and that gradually over the second half of the year, crude oil prices will gradually go down and the situation will normalize. Of course, this is a very fragile situation, and later on we will emphasize that also when we speak about the risks to the outlook. When we look at the inflation, global inflation is expected this year to pick up. Also in the United States, in line with the development in crude oil prices. However, we can see in this on the left-hand side that in 2022, the effect on inflation following the COVID-19 pandemic, pent-up demand for the COVID-19 pandemic, but also the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, oil prices picked up strongly and led to higher inflation than what we are expecting right now. On the right-hand side, you see also, this was what President Doornbos just referred to, the geopolitical risk index. You see that the perception of geopolitical risk has been increasing. We see a peak when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022, I believe it was in February, March, but also this year in March when the conflict, you had a major, let's say, escalation of the conflict in the Middle East. When there is a perception of heightened geopolitical risk, it affects inflation expectations, and that pushes also or exerts also an upward pressure on, for example, crude oil prices. So it's not only the disruptions that we are seeing now, for example, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz or the disruptions in the production because of oil facilities affected in the Middle East, but also the perception of risk, geopolitical risk. Notwithstanding these global developments, we see that growth continued across the monetary union. If we focus on Sint Maarten recorded, according to our estimates, a growth of 3.5% last year, driven by both domestic and net foreign demand. Domestic demand refers to private investment going up, several residential and tourism projects. We also see private consumption went up because of lower inflation. Public, the government sector also added to growth through consumption and investments. Net foreign demand, that is the difference between exports and imports, also had a positive contribution, reflecting primarily higher foreign exchange earnings from tourism. For this year, we expect growth to slightly ease to 2.6% and next year to 2.2%. Here you see the development in tourism, which is Sint Maarten's main economic pillar. I would first like to focus on the number of cruise passengers. The number of cruise passengers in 2025 exceeded our expectations with a growth of around 16%. One of the reasons was the deployment of more cruise ships to the region, but also a change in itineraries following the Hurricane Melissa in Jamaica that destroyed part of the port infrastructure in Jamaica, but also increased demand for cruise travel. When we look at stay-over tourists, we see here a strong increase in 2025, but you have to interpret this with caution. In 2025, Sint Maarten, the immigration authorities improved their registration system at the airport. So the data of 2025 and 2024 are not completely comparable. But we look also at passenger traffic, and we see that airlift, also air connectivity, improved last year. So there was an increase in stay-over tourism, but not the 80% that we see if we look at the ROF data.
Acting Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labour, VSA, Dr. Luc Mercelina, on Monday, met with representatives of the Vitiligo Education and Inspiration Support Society, VEISS Foundation, and signed an official statement recognizing World Vitiligo Day 2026, reaffirming the Government of Sint Maarten's commitment to awareness, inclusion, and support for persons living with vitiligo. The meeting focused on education, public awareness, and reducing the stigma often experienced by individuals affected by the condition. Acting Minister Mercelina commended the Foundation for its ongoing efforts to promote understanding and acceptance throughout the community. World Vitiligo Day reminds us that every person deserves to be respected, valued, and treated with dignity, said Acting Minister Mercelina. Through greater awareness and education, we can challenge misconceptions, reduce stigma, and create a more inclusive Sint Maarten for everyone, stated Acting Minister of VSA Dr. Mercelina. During the meeting, founder Ms. Isaac highlighted the Foundation's outreach efforts, particularly within schools, aimed at fostering understanding and acceptance among young people. We are grateful for the government's recognition of World Vitiligo Day and its support of our mission, said Ms. Isaac. Together, we can continue educating our community and ensuring that persons living with vitiligo feel seen, supported, and included. World Vitiligo Day reminds us that every person deserves to be respected, valued, and treated with dignity, said Acting Minister Mercelina. Through greater awareness and education, we can challenge misconceptions, reduce stigma, and create a more inclusive Sint Maarten for everyone, stated Acting Minister of VSA Dr. Mercelina. During the meeting, founder Ms. Isaac highlighted the Foundation's outreach efforts, particularly within schools, aimed at fostering understanding and acceptance among young people. We are grateful for the government's recognition of World Vitiligo Day and its support of our mission, said Ms. Isaac. Together, we can continue educating our community and ensuring that persons living with vitiligo feel seen, supported, and included.
Your social and health insurance is SXM. Asset V insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? Asset V is cardless. Request your My Asset V account today and enter the virtual office of Asset V. Go to assetv.sx and sign up now.
Asset V, yeah, your social health insurances.
Reporter asking, at the press conference with management of NVGEBE, an impression has been created in the media that there will be a decrease in the price of electricity and water. And I suspect that that's part of the reason that you're having problems collecting is because this expectations have been created in the public that prices are going to come down because the public feels that if I pay, I'm not going to get my money back, so they don't pay. Can you be clear about what reasonable expectation should the public have about the price of the kilowatt hour and the price of water?
No. I mean, the times we're living in right now, on the contrary, we see an increase. We don't see a decrease. I don't believe there will be no decrease, and there will also be no relief that GB can give, not at this phase in time. If persons will have to pay their bills, as hard as may sound, but our responsibility is to ensure that this company can survive and this company can thrive. Because without this utility company, we don't have any other. So that's why I say we are so grateful for that 58.6% of persons that are paying. Because all those who are not paying, they are banking, those 58.6 is who's keeping us running. Mm-hmm. So it's imperative that they do pay.
So to be really clear, the public should not expect to see a decrease in electricity.
No, which was just fuel from Sol. So we as a company, I don't think we have no control over Sol where that's concerned. It's the price that they charge us. That will have to come from the government perspective for that part.
Have you discussed that with the shareholder? I know you just took office.
Just took office. So we have a lot of things that we have to do, so all those discussions are going to come. And I want to reiterate that 25 cents is not stamps for stamps, it's a tax. It's a tax that has to be paid to government. That's what it is on the bill.
I just wanted to ask a question since the fuel cost is being discussed now. You made it clear that on the short term there is absolutely no possibility for relief right now. But what about the long term? Because based on the diagram you showed, the fuel cost is the one that's really, and we all know it who get the bills, it's really the one that's driving the bills for consumers up. So what about the long term? Is GB looking into the possibility of seeing what it can do? I know efforts have been made in the past to lower that in, if there's any mechanisms or any avenue to lower that in the long term so that people can get some form of relief. And what can you say to consumers? Because some of the things that are being applied to the fuel clause has to do with things that GB is doing. So how can we be sure?
Like what exactly?
I believe some of the things mentioned is maintenance and some other things, but the question is, how are we guaranteed that GB is being very, very efficient with those things so that the fuel cost can remain as low as possible? So it's just a two-part question.
So yeah, just help me back with the first part and then forget about the
So for the long term, is there any plans to do anything to make lower the clause? Is there any possibility that that can be done?
Okay, so as I said, I just reached here now. Today is going to make 5 days.
Right.
So we know GB was busy with a tariff study. So as a team, we're going to look back and we're going to see what we can come up with and move forward from there, because we have a company who's helping us with that outside. So when we meet with them, we will see what possibilities exist there for that part. And the other part of your question was with the losses. In the fuel clause, as you see the one for 7Cs. I know a lot of people talk about that. But remember, we don't produce water. We purchase the water. So it's also likely, if we take it off on the fuel clause, if we put the fuel clause on 7Cs, they're going to put it right back in the bill where we have to purchase the water to give back to the consumers. So that's a reality. And we talk about our net losses. I think I'll give the floor to Patrick, who will give you a little more on the net losses that we have registered.
Good afternoon. Good morning or good afternoon. Yeah, net losses, well, those are things basically caused by consumers. If a consumer uses an appliance at home, or many consumers use appliances at home, of course there are losses on the grid, because more you consume, the more load you have on the grid, the more load you create, the more losses you create on the network. And that is also included in the net losses that you see right now, that you use, the 8.5%. So people have to bear in mind, the more you use stuff, the more you add stuff to your home, of course, there is an increase of, let's say, load on the system. And it's like you use more water, you push more water through a pipe, the more friction you create, etc., etc. So one of your appliances that uses a lot of electricity are water heaters, irons, all those type of things. Iron is a prime example. If you turn on an iron, you create heat. Heat is losses. So the more you use those type of more electrical appliances, the more load you cross on the system and the more losses you create in the network for us. So, for example, if nobody would use electricity, there would be no losses. But we can't do without, of course, using electricity. So that's where the net losses come in. We have tried, let me say we can't say tried, we have upgraded our system and we try to keep the net losses as low as possible. But again, as Ms. Iris is saying, without having the monies to be able to do your maintenance on the network, of course, that will also drive the prices up, the losses up, sorry, for the network.
I have a question, and this question is pertinent. Now, Zimbabwe is becoming a very poor country. Okay, a lot of poverty on this island, and I can recall when I was on GB board, we made a proposal. You, Ms. Arundel, Mr. Chiddick was there, and Veronica Webster, for prepaid meters. When is GB going to seriously consider prepaid meters? If we had that today, you wouldn't have a problem with disconnecting the same people that can't pay, because they will use and pay for what they use. Where are we today when it comes to the prepaid meters?
Mr. Drivers will answer that question.
Well, the meters that we are installing now are postpaid and prepaid meters. So
Installing where?
all over the place right now. All the meters that we are installing currently are both post and prepaid meters. The situation that we have is that we do not have the system in place to be able to do prepaid metering. It's a whole process that we have to go through. We are busy working on it right now, but we have to, of course, install all the meters. Installing all the meters costs money. Again, it's an investment that we have to do. And of course, the software system that we have to put in place, because it's just not that we put on the meter and say, okay, we get a prepaid system going. It can happen. We are trying to get it in place, hopefully by next year, so that people who are delinquent payers or people who wish to go on prepaid metering can go on prepaid metering. So they just come in and we click of a button and it's switched over from postpaid to prepaid meters. So we are working on it. It's just taking time and, of course, money.
So you're saying 2027 is a possibility?
Yeah. hopefully we can start with having prepaid meters in place. Or let me say the system in place.
But you will
Meters
agree
are
that that will
being
help
installed.
make a difference in St. Martin?
Of course, we totally agree because the neighboring islands who have it already are seeing also the benefits of it. So why can't St. Martin do it? So we are busy with that as well.
How many of those meters do you have installed at the current level?
We have 17,000 installed, so we are just basically trying to round off. But the meters are basically communicating with our communication system that we have in place, and we are trying to use, again, trying to use our own system to be able to retrieve the data from these meters. If you see outside, we have the silver water meters, we have the white electricity meters, and these communicate with each other. So the electrical meter reads the data from the water meters. Everything goes via our underground system back to the office, so we are not using a third party, we're using our own system, which drives down the cost, of course. And then once all the data reaches what we call a transformer station, from the transformer station it goes via a fiber backbone back to the office. So right now, everything over the two bridges and on the western side of the island, so Simpson Bay, Beacon Hill, Lowlands area, are currently all on remote metering systems set up. The meters are being installed all over, but of course the communication system has to be installed as well, and we are busy doing that right now. So Cold Bay is next, Pelican has been completed as well, KB has been completed, so we are basically saying the western side of the island can be totally on remote metering right now. On the eastern side of the island, just certain sections, certain location districts are being read remotely, but not everything as it. So hopefully we could get that done also by the end of this year. All the meters should be changed out.
Now for the weather forecast, today through Thursday midday. Fair to partly cloudy, breezy, and slightly hazy. Passing showers are possible. Surface winds, today through Thursday midday, east-northeast to east, with a gentle to moderate breeze at 8 to 18 mmPH. State of the sea, slight waves, swells, 2 to 4 feet outlook through Friday midday. Partly cloudy and slightly hazy with isolated showers likely. And now your 3-day forecast.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurance.
Are you SXV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXV is cardless. Request your My SXV account today and enter the virtual office of SXV. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurance.
BBC News. The UK's infrastructure has also felt the strain from the heat, with more than 300 schools being partially closed this week, and Britain's biggest train company, Go via Thameslink, warned passengers not to travel on Wednesday unless it's absolutely necessary because of speed restrictions for safety.
Heat warnings are in place across Europe as the continent faces record temperatures. Half of France is under a red alert and just recorded its hottest night since records began. Parts of western France climbed to 42 degrees Celsius or 107 degrees Fahrenheit on Tuesday afternoon. Authorities are taking steps to keep people out of the sun, including closing the Eiffel Tower early. At least 40 people have drowned over the last few days while trying to cool off. In the UK, temperatures are expected to rise in the next 24 hours to above 35 degrees Celsius or 95 degrees Fahrenheit. A red warning for extreme heat comes into effect starting 9 a.m. UK time on Wednesday across parts of England and Wales. Scientists say the heat is part of a wider pattern of man-made climate change. Our climate editor, Justin Rowland, has the latest report.
First came the storms, sweeping across the south and west of England overnight, bringing 29,000 lightning strikes, according to the Met Office. It set this home in Bristol alight, one of several fires caused by lightning. And the rain overwhelmed streets and homes. The London Fire Brigade attended some 400 call-outs. This is weather, but in our warming climate, scientists say torrential downpours are more likely, and so is the extreme heat that engulfed much of the UK during the day. And the country's infrastructure was feeling the strain. More than 300 schools will be partially closing this week. And Britain's biggest train company, Go via Thameslink, warned passengers not to travel tomorrow unless it is absolutely necessary because of speed restrictions for safety. The kind of heat the UK is experiencing can have insidious impacts on our bodies.
Our bodies have to work a lot harder in heat. So it means your heart has to pump harder, it means all of your biological mechanisms have to work harder in the heat. And for the elderly or for children who are less able to regulate their internal body temperature, it puts them under additional strain.
Some local authorities are laying on cool spaces, like this community centre in Tottenham in London.
Does your flat get hot?
Oh, you can't say that again. It literally is a chilling space. Chilling for your mind and chilling for yourself.
It's an air-conditioned sanctuary where people can get respite from the sweltering heat.
It's just so refreshing to come in here, and it's almost like, you know, you're in your own little fridge.
Walking from out there to here was just a relief. Especially with half of us that are like menopausal, it was a relief. If you have that and you have heat, it's not good to be around us. Yeah.
The fact our towns and cities are beginning to provide these cool spaces is a sign of the UK's new climate reality. In a week of brutal heat, of storms and flooding, our homes, schools, hospitals, roads and drains are being tested by extremes they were never designed to endure. And the uncomfortable truth is this: in some cases, they simply can't cope. And this heat wave isn't over yet. It's forecast to build to a peak tomorrow and Thursday that looks set to see some UK temperature records shattered. Justin Rowland, BBC News.
This is our SXM Daily Newscast. Thank you for joining us.